Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Baloo from the Silm Center for Mental Health. Welcome. We're here today to talk about improving self-esteem, the impact of attachment on the quality of relationships and healthy self-esteem. So this is a topic I think all of us can relate to, but I also think each of us is going to learn something. It's one of those ones that kind of unlayer as you go. So you might know some of it, and you're definitely going to learn more today. So here to talk to us about that is Zahra Safi, one of the therapists from Silm Mental Health. So Zahra, thank you, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you everyone for joining us at this hour. Um, so today I'll be talking about attachment relationships and self-esteem, and I hope this presentation is useful in some way and you gain something from it. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay. Yeah. So today, like Dr. Balu mentioned, I'm going to be discussing about self-esteem and attachment relationships. I'll be providing ways to build healthy self-esteem and discuss the quality of attachment relationship that interferes or shapes it. So the agenda for the day is as follows. Today, firstly, I'll be talking about relationships, specifically on the aspect of attachment styles, what it is and its importance of it. Then we'll be moving on to self-esteem, what that is, and going into more details on the characteristics of healthy and low self-esteem. Then we'll be discussing on strategies to improve our self-esteem, and I'll be providing one exercise that we can engage or you can engage in that can hopefully help you improve your self-esteem with consistent practice. And lastly, we'll debrief and answer any questions you guys may have. So one thing we can all agree on is that the quality of our relationships obviously has a huge impact on how satisfied and happy we are in our lives. On the flip side, when our relationships aren't going well, or when we feel we're repeating the same mistakes over and over again, we can feel kind of helpless, overwhelmed, frustrated, and despairing for the future. So a good way to start to address this issue is to look at attachment style. So before we begin that, I want to give a bit of background information. Where did this attachment style and attachment theory come from? So John Bowlby was the first to introduce the attachment theory. Basically, he aimed to understand the distress infants have when they're separated from their parents or caregiver. He believed that attachment was an all or nothing process. However, research has shown that there are individual differences in attachment quality. This brings us to attachment styles. So Mary Ainsworth was influenced by Bowlby, and she conducted an experiment to assess how attachments can vary between the child and the caregiver. Indeed, one of the primary paradigms in attachment theory is that the security of the individual's attachments. So following this experiment, Ainsworth identified three main attachment styles. The first one is secure attachment style. We have insecure avoidant attachment style. And lastly, we have insecure oblivion or anxiousness or anxious attachment style. And these were the three that she concluded based on the early interactions of the child with the mother. And the fourth attachment style was known as disorganized or anxious avoidant, which was later identified. So childhood attachment captures a child's distinct relationship with a primary caregiver, as well as their ability to differentiate the primary caregiver from other adults. Whereas adult attachment involves individuals' multiple relationships, whether it be with their parents, a romantic partner, or a close friend. Okay, so now we're going to get into the attachment styles. As mentioned earlier, there's four types: secure, avoidant, anxious, and anxious avoidant. So the first one I'll be talking about is secure attachment style. So in this attachment style, the individual has the ability to regulate their emotions. They're easily trusting of others, have effective communication skills, have high or healthy self-esteem, and they're very comfortable in their close relationships, and they're comfortable in being alone as well. And they're basically able to be emotionally available when needed. And these type of people basically grow up feeling more emotionally and physically engaged with the world around them in a more healthy manner. As a result, these type of people are able to navigate their relationships more better and know when to draw clear boundaries. They're also very positive, trusting, and loving to those around them, and they're also capable of accepting rejection and moving on despite the pain, but they're also capable of being loyal and sacrificing when necessary. So just to illustrate some examples of a person with secure attachment style and how they would, I guess you can say, think or process situations, you would find these people saying, I find it easy to get emotionally close to my partner. When I show my feelings for my partner, I know they feel the same about me. I know that my partner will be there when I need them. I want to have my partner with me when I am upset. I don't worry about my partner leaving me. So those are some examples. The second one we have is avoidant attachment style. In this attachment style, the individual is more persistently avoiding any emotional or physical intimacy. They have a strong sense of independence, are uncomfortable expressing their feelings, and they're very dismissive of others, and have a hard time trusting others as well. And you can see these type of people spending more time alone than interacting with new people or people they already know. These type of people, they're very they are experts at rationalizing their way out of an intimate situation. So they regularly complain about feeling crowded or suffocated when you try to get close to them, and are often paranoid that about being controlled or boxed in. And their lifestyle basically involves um, like avoiding commitment and any contact with intimate contact, we can say, with other people or other individuals. So some examples that would give you some insight on avoidant attachment style is they would say, I prefer to keep to myself when I'm around my partner. I don't talk to my partner about my feelings. I don't give my partner the chance to let me down. I don't want to be around my partner if I'm feeling upset. I wouldn't care if my partner left me. The third one, anxious attach. Sorry, the third attachment style is anxious attachment style. So in this style, the individual is more sensitive to criticism, whether real or perceived. They often need approval from others. Um, have difficulty being alone. A key thing is they have low self-esteem, so they feel unworthy of love. They have intense fear of rejection or fear of abandonment, and they have difficulty trusting others. So these people are in constant need constant reassurance from others or their partners, and they often blame themselves for challenges in their relationship and exhibit intense jealousy or distress due to their poor self-esteem. And you can see these type of people often being succumbed to unhealthy relationships and at times abusive relationships, obviously due to this fear of being abandoned, rejected, or alone, right? Um, and some examples to showcase anxious attachment style is my partner is reluctant to get as emotionally close as I would like. When I tell my partner my troubles, I feel like they don't care. I often worry that my partner doesn't love me. I fear that our relationship will end. And lastly, we have anxious avoidant attachment style. So in this attachment style, the individual fears rejection, has an inability to regulate emotions, showcase contradictory behaviors, have high levels of anxiety at times, difficulty trusting others, and basically a combination of avoidant and anxious attachment style. And these people basically have unpredictable, confusing behavior. They alternate between being very independent and being clingy or emotional. And they desperately seek love, but they push others away or their partners away due to the fear of love, right? So they fear it. So you can see this difference and like, okay, wanting it but pushing away, which kind of identifies the whole title of anxious avoidant. And they're usually low in confidence and less likely to express their emotions. So some examples to identify anxious avoidant attachment style is I want to get emotionally close to my partner, but I worry about them hurting my feelings. I want to feel close to my partner, but I also don't trust them to want to be close to me. I can't live without my partner, even though being with them isn't working. So that was a whole mouthful. I hope you, I'm going to break down more afterwards. So now that you're familiar with attachment styles, why is it important in our relationships, and why is it important to discover and understand it and be aware of it? Well, firstly, it helps us understand how we perceive others, which thereby helps our relationships. It kind of it helps us get a sense of our own behavior, um, being more mindful of them, being mindful of how we interact with others, why we're thinking this type of way, um, and basically identify those patterns of ourselves and others. Understand how we respond to intimacy, whether it be in a partnership, relationship with a family member, friend, coworker, what kind of problems we have in our relationships. Understanding, being mindful, aware of this would kind of give us the understanding for both yourself and the other person to work on it, and find solutions. It also, lastly, also identify patterns with your relationships with others and how to overcome it, as mentioned. And main thing is provides insight on our degree of our self-esteem. So, um, as mentioned earlier, for the attachment in childhood, so the attachment style we have in childhood may differ in the attachment style that we acquire when we're an adult and when we grow up. However, for some, the attachment style that we have in childhood may never change and may be the same, right? When we move into childhood, when we move into adulthood, sorry. So, for instance, an individual may develop secure attachment in adulthood because of the healthy interpersonal experiences they have around them, right? That are facilitated by trust, support, and nurturing received from the significant other in the partnership or relationship, despite them having initially insecure attachment patterns in their early childhood. So, attachment theory indicates that childhood attachment can not only have direct effects on our adult attachment, but also have indirect effects on adult attachment via self-esteem. Now we're going to go over self-esteem and its importance. So this is a quote I like to share, which I found interesting. It says, many of the most intense emotions arise during the formation, the maintenance, the disruption, and the renewal of attachment relationships. So you going through that change in attachment style, or you navigating through it, the whole process involves all these intense emotions, and being mindful of that and going through it in a healthy way would help you improve your attachment style, and get to that secure attachment style that we want. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the importance of self-esteem. So just to give a rundown of what self-esteem is. So according to psychologists William James and Carl Rogers, self-esteem is basically defined as a distinct psychological construct defined as a bond between individuals' achievements and individuals' aspirations. It is basically viewed as an individual's subjective sense of self-worth. And it's not about the objective characteristics or how a person is perceived and evaluated by others. Self-esteem also includes four main components: feelings of security, feelings of competence, sense of belonging, and identity. So feelings of security is the main foundation of self-esteem. If we feel secure with our family, if we feel loved and our needs are met, our self-esteem develops. That's when we try to take our place and try new things and new experiences. Then we have feelings of competence. So to feel competent, we need to have different experiences in our life. We can either fail or succeed, learn new things. This contributes to our feelings of competence and how we do in different aspects of our lives. Thirdly, we have our sense of belonging. So we belong to many different groups, right? With our families and groups at school, sports, and we define ourselves by belonging to these groups, by the relationships we have with other people and the experiences we have in these groups. For instance, feeling like part of the group, feeling solidarity, seeking out the other group members, communicating well, sharing, etc. And the various group we belong to allow us to feel understood, and that there are people like us that have the same interests in sports or a certain subject or whatever that group may, represent or involve. And lastly, we have identity. So this is the knowledge we have of ourselves. So by experimenting, learning, and getting feedback from the people around us, we come to identify our characteristics, abilities, needs, and feelings, right? And this can be divided into several parts. One can include our physical, so the representation that each person has with their own body. It can include our social, how we come into contact with others, the groups we associate with, how you act with your significant other, and etc. So now that we have an understanding what self-esteem is, let's look into the characteristics of low and healthy self-esteem. So what we would like to maintain is a high or healthy self-esteem to be able to live a healthy and prosperous life. So healthy self-esteem contributes to the feeling of worth and security. So worth is defined as the positive evaluation of all aspects of ourselves. If we have a healthy self-esteem, you're more likely to have a positive relationship with others, and your confidence enables you to do good in school and work. That healthy self-esteem also gives you a positive outlook, even when you don't meet the expectations, and you're more open to feedback and opportunities of growth. And when your self-esteem is healthy, you're less likely to develop also any mental health conditions that can be excessive, such as anxiety, depression, eating disorders, any types of addiction. So some characteristics listed here we have for healthy self-esteem is having feelings of self-respect, loving themselves and feeling worthy of love, acting in an independent fashion, achieving great success, assuming responsibility, taking more risks, and being able to learn from that, feeling proud of their accomplishment, whether big or small, not being self-centered. So sometimes I feel like maybe we can misinterpret this, sorry, with being too cocky or too full of yourself or themselves, right? But healthy self-esteem means not that, right? The complete opposite. And if you're dealing with any stressful or negative experiences in your life, you deal with the problem in a more healthy coping manner. For instance, by talking to somebody, if it's too much for you, engaging in self-care practices to kind of level yourself out. And this can kind of build that tolerance, like that higher tolerate great level of frustration, basically. And then so on the opposite side, we have low self-esteem. So low self-esteem makes it difficult to make decisions. And if your self-esteem is low, you depend a lot of your time seeking approval from others, lacking that confidence, and you tend to avoid much risk because you fear failure. You generally expect to be unsuccessful, and your view of the world is generally negative, and your view of your relationships are negative. You frequently put yourself down, or very critical of yourself. And having this negative view of yourself and others increases your chance of having an unhealthy relationship with others in the world, right? So some points for this would be feeling more negative emotions. By this, I mean it's normal for us to engage in being acceptive of times when we're sad or angry and sitting in that feeling. But what I'm trying to say is when we have low self-esteem, feeling more negative emotions where it's for a long period of time or it's too excessive, feeling unworthy of love and respect, avoiding new activities due to fear of failure, constantly fear rejection, you putting themselves down or others down, you're blaming others for your problems and mistakes, like I mentioned, seeking approval. And if you're dealing with a stressful or negative experience in your life, you use addictive behaviors to cope with those painful feelings, for instance, or behaviors that are unhealthy, such as, drug abuse, like abusing drugs, drinking a lot of alcohol, engaging in risky behavior like racing. All these stuff can constitute unhealthy or addictive behaviors, or binging. And finally, we have a poorly defined self-identity. when you have low self-esteem. So now that we talked about the characteristics, why is this important, right? So self-esteem obviously is important because it impacts how you think about yourself. Another thing is that it impacts your decision making and thinking process. You can either think positively or negatively, and this can impact the choices you make in your life. And as we spoke earlier, can impact the quality of your relationship, as mentioned when we talked about our attachment styles. So the quality of relationships you have with your friends, your loved ones, family, coworkers, anybody in your life. So the higher self-esteem or healthy self-esteem you acquire, the more secure you are in your relationships. And that's what we try to aim to achieve. Um, Self-esteem can also influence your motivation in achieving goals or tasks in life. For instance, it can impact the motivation to apply to a job you wanted for a while now, because your esteem can probably make you doubt yourself if you're proper for the job and procrastinate your application even longer due to your subjective sense of self-worth. Um, People with healthy and positive view of themselves obviously understand their potential and may feel inspired to take on these new challenges. And another thing is self-esteem influences your psychological well-being and your general well-being. And it can, so as we mentioned earlier, it can cause you to acquire certain mental health. It impacts your mental health by making you have higher anxiety levels, depression, etc., and lead you to have a poor quality of life. Um, and and overall, self-esteem defines your self-identity. So having a healthy self-esteem can create you to value yourself more. If you don't value yourself, how will you be able to value others, right? So that's why oftentimes you're probably here to work on yourself and take care of yourself, to be able to reciprocate that in relationships around you. And self-esteem can basically breed confidence, which can help you get through those difficulties in your life and those challenges that come about. So now that we talked about the importance of it, I just want to pinpoint some, and we talked about the characteristics of low and healthy self-esteem, so some signs of low self-esteem that can come about. A way that we can easily identify low self-esteem is to pay attention to your thought patterns. So here are some ways that you can pay attention to that. So one way is having a thought pattern of all or nothing thinking. So you can either see things as all good or all bad. So for example, if you tell yourself, if I am not a total success, then I'm a failure, right? Having that contrast between like black and white, all or nothing. Overgeneralizing certain situations. So you assume that one negative factor event creates a general rule for your life. For example, saying, because I felt uncomfortable at that get together with my friends, at that get together, I don't have what it takes to make friends, right? You're making that situation bigger than it seems, or you're thinking about that. Mental filtering, you focus only on the negative aspects of life, dwell on them, and magnify them. For instance, saying that you're getting a mediocre evaluation proves how inadequate you are, and getting high marks doesn't mean I am smart, right? Converting your positives into negatives. So you disregard or reject the positive aspects of your life, and you make excuses for your achievements. For instance, saying that I did that project well, but that doesn't mean I am competent. I just got lucky. Jumping to conclusions is another one. So this means that you assume the worst, and even when you have no evidence to support it. So for instance, telling a person that I know what you're going to say without them even saying anything yet, right? Because you're jumping the gun, or you're jumping conclusions. Based on your experience and how you engaged in your life. Mistaking feelings for facts. You feel stupid, lazy, or ugly, so you conclude that you really are stupid, lazy, or ugly. And personalizing everything. So that means that you assume everything negative has something to do with you. and you take inappropriate responsibility and inappropriate guilt. For instance, um, if you say the repairman was curt to me because I did something wrong, right? That can be an example of you personalizing everything negative that's happening. What we want to achieve, though, is a higher healthy self-esteem where we can better ourselves. So some signs of that to improve or to try to improve on that is being more assertive in expressing our needs and opinions and having that assertive communication with the opposing person. So by assertive, I mean communicating your wants, needs, or feelings, but also at the same time being respectful of the opposing person. And we have being confident in the ability to make decisions and being able to form secure and honest relationships and discontinuing the unhealthy ones. So being mindful of the relationships you have around you and drawing that boundary on those unhealthy relationships. And if you notice that the opposing person is not being respectful or understanding of a situation that you're going through, being aware of that and kind of if it gets to a point where that person is not understanding, discontinuing that unhealthy relationship because it's not benefiting you. Being realistic in the expectations you set and you set or expectations you have of another person, and not being overcritical of yourself and others. We often get I feel like that's something that obviously gets in the way of our relationships, having higher expectations of others. Um, but and what you can do is create that understanding and have that conversation with the opposing persons, if you feel like you don't know, and ask them what are your expectations of me, right, rather than assuming. Being more resilient and better being able to endure stress or setbacks. Obviously our life is a roller coaster, so getting into that habit and having those down moments is normal, but being able to push through and cope with them in a healthy manner shows your resilience and you being able to move forth and combating any obstacle or situation that comes about. So now that we talked about all that, what can we do to better ourselves and improve our relationships with others and to improve our self-esteem? So having low self-esteem obviously can impact our entire life, including our school life, work life, our relationships, our physical health. So improving that self-esteem or working and getting and learning the strategies to reach the level of acquiring a healthy self-esteem is a very worthwhile task. And there's several strategies that we can try to engage in on a daily basis. You can start off by picking one and working your way through it and adding on once you feel like you're doing well in that strategy that you picked. You don't have to do all of it. First thing is identifying and challenging your negative beliefs. This may be difficult at first, but the intention and the effort you try to understand it would be beneficial. Of course, you can do this, try to attempt to do this on your own, or you can do it with another person, or seek a therapist to help you navigate through your thought processes. And as I mentioned earlier, the signs of low self-esteem, once you understand your thought process, you can obviously ask yourself, what does that mean, right? Like, or if a situation happens, what does that mean to me? Then you can kind of like narrow it down to the belief you have. A belief could be, a negative belief could be, I am not good enough, right? Identifying the positives about yourself, strengths and positive qualities. So finding that positive quality about yourself or aspect in your life, accepting your strengths, taking in all the compliments and celebrating your accomplishments. And for instance, being proud of all that and all the positive qualities you have, and not dwelling on the weaknesses or the negatives that we all have and that comes about in our lives. Building positive relationships, as mentioned earlier, identifying your relationships with others, which one which one are healthy, which one are unhealthy, setting those boundaries, and identifying that if you're trying to acquire a new relationship, being clear on who you are, what you want, what you need, and vice versa with the opposing person, and respecting that other person as well. You can start a gratitude journal. So a gratitude journal would help you improve your self-esteem. And it can help you appreciate what you've done well in your day or in your week or in your month, and encourage yourself to do more. It's like a mini celebration, and writing it down would make you acknowledge it more. Um, we have becoming more assertive, as mentioned earlier, in your communication with others. If somebody asks you something that you're not comfortable with, or you're not able to do, having that ability, or trying to learn to have that ability to say no to them. Um, Improving your physical health. Some say that when they're feeling low, they go to the gym, and that kind of helps improve their mood. So working on yourself is not only mentally, you can also work on yourself physically, which can kind of improve your self-esteem in that aspect as well. Trying to take on new challenges, even if it's a small new challenge, and kind of giving a pat on the back for yourself once you get through that challenge. Or even if you weren't able to do it, at least you give your a pat on yourself, a pat on the back for yourself, that you tried or attempted to do it. And like I said earlier, not dwelling on your weaknesses, forgiving yourself if you ever encounter any mistakes, and that you're human. It's normal to make mistakes, and making those mistakes, you're able to learn from them. Encouraging yourself and giving yourself positive changes, like I mentioned earlier, and using positive self-talk, right? So I'm going to talk about that in a sec. When you use positive self-talk, you can argue with your inner critic, and be able to push it back, and kind of, once you keep practicing positive self-talk, it's gonna um, thicken and help you with your self-esteem. So one exercise you can practice to help with your self-esteem is positive affirmations. Um, what are affirmations? Are statements that we say to ourselves that can shift our mindset and make us feel better about ourselves. So utilizing these positive affirmations, you can make a list of positive qualities and accomplishments and use them to improve. So how to do this is you can create 5 affirmation statements that are meaningful to you. These affirmations obviously have to be positive, and in the present tense. For instance, statements such as, I am healthy, I am confident, I am brave, I am smart. Picking statements that are meaningful to you, or you feel like, that you want to start practicing. And once you have your statements, try starting your day by saying these affirmations out loud. So organizing your thoughts and saying them out loud can, like I mentioned, train your brain to form these new thought patterns. And practicing these affirmations may feel silly at first, or look silly, but as you keep doing them, it will become more natural to you. Um, Oftentimes what you can do is you can either have it memorized or put it on your phone, whatever is much easier for you, or you can write it on a sticky note and place it on the mirror in the washroom. Once you wake up, you brush your teeth in the morning, you can say that to yourselves. Or some people want to put it, if they want to create statements related to your work to help or motivate them, they can paste it in their work desk area, on their laptop, wherever it's accessible. You can see if you have moments of negative self-talk about your work or whatever it is, you can look back at them, and then you can say it to yourself or read it. Saying it out loud was more beneficial though, and it can help you, give you a boost with your self-esteem. How to start to create these sentences or statements can be difficult. Obviously, you can start the sentence by starting off saying I am, and then whatever first thoughts that come to your mind, you can complete that. Or you can try a different variation of I am sentences. That if I am sentences don't work for you, you can say today I will, etc., and that can contribute to you working better to discover your goals, motivations, and etc. And we have come to the end of the presentation. Just a quick summary of what I've talked about today. There are 4 types of attachment styles: the secure, avoidant, anxious, and anxious avoidant. And the characteristics are, that come with it. A childhood attachment styles may differ from adulthood attachment styles. And obviously, if you have attachment style that's not insecure in your childhood, you are able to change it. If you work through it and become more mindful of it. Self-esteem is a key component in each attachment style. And the different characteristics of healthy self-esteem, the signs of low and healthy. There's several ways, like I mentioned, that you can try to improve your self-esteem. You don't have to do all of them at once. You can pick one, practice it for a while, create a timeline for yourself. If you feel like you're doing well in that area or you got it, you can add another one afterwards and create like a set schedule. Improving your self-esteem it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of mindfulness, being aware of who you are, and it's normal for it to take a long time. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. And overall, improving your self-esteem basically aids in our mental, physical health, how we have the quality of our relationships with others, and it creates life satisfaction and doesn't make your life as miserable as it probably seems to you. So just some pointers. And yeah, that's all I have for our presentation. Hopefully you gained something from it. Thank you for listening. Oh, just a quick before we debrief, I want to share this quote. So this quote says, "Your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship you have." It's by Robert Holden, a psychologist. So just want to share this quote for you to carry on and think about in respect to working on yourself. And thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Zahra.
No problem.
That was wonderful. Thank you for making something like attachment styles so relatable. I feel like that's one of those ones that people kind of know anecdotally, but they don't relate to it, or they don't know exactly what it means or what they might be. So you really made that relatable. I love that quote at the end too. We think of ourselves sometimes as secondary to other people when we think about relationships, and that really helps bring it into focus. We have a lot of questions, so I want to jump into that, but I really did feel like that self-esteem, connecting self-esteem with attachment really helps it feel hopeful. Like there's lots you can do, or there's ways you can come about it. Like it's not just something that you are born with. We just have a certain type of attachment, or we have a certain level of self-esteem, but actually that it's something that's workable, that we can actually change over time. That was really clear. So let me ask you a couple of these questions. One of the questions is, do affirmations work if we don't believe them?
Affirmations is obviously like the practice. It might work, it will still work, it's just you have to keep practicing it. It's very difficult. We obviously have these affirmations of like, I am brave, even though we're not brave. You writing it down, you probably won't believe it, like I am not brave, right? But research shows that if you keep giving that yourself that positive self-talk and like practicing it, you can kind of instill that in yourself, that I am brave, right? And if there's a situation that happens, and like for instance, if you wanted to confront, if you're scared of confrontation, you confront somebody that you didn't want to confront, going through that or practicing that I am brave, it'll give you that motivation and boost to be able to go through with that situation. So you might, it's normal for us, so we might not believe in it, but that practicing can kind of instill that belief in positive affirmations and make us
kind of a fake it till you make it approach, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and how you speak to yourself is so powerful. We don't even realize some of the other messaging that we're putting in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Do I have to fall into one attachment style, or will I bounce around several over a lifetime?
That's a good question. You can, it's not only one attachment style, you can go from you can bounce in many different attachment styles depending on the experiences you have with others and the interpersonal relationships or experiences with the world and others. So, like I mentioned earlier, you can have a type of attachment style when you're younger and insecure, but if you seek healthy relationships and positive relationships and like are supported through that, then you're able to um, have a more secure relationship style with another person.
Mm-hmm.
It basically depends on the experiences you have and the relationships you have. So that's why we have to try to be more mindful of that, and yeah, be more mindful of that and being aware of who you're surrounded with. And there are times where it's not like our life is perfect, so we may get into negative situations, but when pushing through and being aware of that and working on it is what's important, right? So you are able
Yeah.
to balance through different types. So
Yeah, it's
mhm.
motivating, right? When you need that extra push to
Mhm.
go out and create community that actually is reflective of you, or leave a partner, pick a partner that, is reflective of who you want to be, your aspirational self versus, some of the qualities you don't want around in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How can therapy help with my attachment?
Um, Good question. So therapy can help a lot. Therapy can help you navigate, and identify who you are and your self-worth, and like go into more detail of areas that you don't or haven't become aware, didn't want to go into detail with. Um, we obviously have areas where we don't are not aware of, and once we get into therapy, the therapist and yourself, you can work through those areas. um, Find ways it will help you dig deep in areas that you didn't want to get deep or didn't even think about that could have influenced your experience or relationships with another person. So
Mhm.
um, getting into that area of relationships and therapy can help, or talking about that can help you, mm, you know um, be more aware of, well, okay, if that person or the therapist asks you a question, kind of like, okay, I never thought of it that way, right? Like getting into it more basically in areas that you didn't think of, and it'll help you understand attachment more, or
Mhm.
the type of relationship you have with that person compared to a relationship with another, and why the difference between it, right? What's
Yeah.
the thing that gets in the way?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And this last question speaks to, that quote that you had at the end a little bit. Says, "What if I truly believe that I'm not a good or worthy person? Do I have to change how I feel about myself before I can find myself in a healthy relationship?"
Yes. So it's a work in progress, I would say. Um, and like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. So making that small changes, or being more mindful of yourself. Um, of course, they say that once you work on yourself, you're able to contribute more to the world and to other people and other relationships. So starting off with yourself, it is important, and it is very difficult to get into that because we oftentimes focus more on others than ourselves. So slowing down, and you know uh, figuring out, okay, why did that situation happen, what was going through my mind, what were the feelings that came about, why did I behave that way, it can give more insight on yourself, right? And
Yeah.
you're able to work through that. So yeah, it's very important. It is difficult, but practicing that and being supported by others, to be mindful of that, is helpful as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard you say that it really starts with kind of asking yourself some of these questions and
Mhm,
knowing yourself better, right?
mhm,
Like
mhm.
tuning into how you feel, who you are in the room, insights about yourself, that knowing yourself better then kind of leads to some of the changes internally that you want to make.
Yeah, exactly. And just yeah, and just like going through that experience and like questioning, or if there's not even questioning, or it's like there's situation where that happens, and you know going through that and questioning yourself, or going through that, or maybe if another person brings that question to you, really digesting into that, okay, why did that person say that, maybe not in a
Hmm.
way of like dwelling on yourself or dwelling on the negatives of yourself, but in a way where it's like, okay, maybe
Yeah.
there should be improvements or this, or maybe I never noticed that about myself, um
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. People had so many
Yeah.
questions today. I do feel like this is the kind of content you can go back and back to. So
Mhm.
please If you do want to share this webinar with anybody, this information with anyone, or you want to watch it again yourself just to slow it down and really think through your own attachment style and self-esteem pieces, and those, tips that you gave us were so helpful. If people want to apply it to themselves, you can see this webinar again on silmmentalhealth.com. And if anyone wants to reach out for therapy or for support or for more information about either of these things, self-esteem, attachment, the connection between the two, please reach out to admin@silmmentalhealth.com. We'll be happy to help with that. Thank you so much, Zahra. That was really helpful. And maybe we'll leave it at that then.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for allowing me to share this. Hopefully somebody got something important out of it.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.